I'm going to be really rude and ask, how old are you, sir?
I'm 89. I would say last week was my birthday. I was just 88 last week. I was born in Kentucky, raised mostly at Canyon, and about 30 minutes after I got here, I wanted to be a cowboy.
I was in high school at the time, or junior high, and Jim was maybe a year behind. And they came in the middle of the year, and just the word was out that there were 2 new boys in school. Fun to have new blood in Canyon High School.
I went to high school here, and then I went to college here. My father was president of this college. I graduated from West Texas State College in 1955 and immediately went to the University of Texas to do graduate work in mathematics. I went to Ames, Iowa to be on the faculty of Iowa State University, where I was there for 38 years and had a very happy career there. I retired in 2000 and I took up the study of paleontology. I actually went back to school at the University of Kansas, earned a master's degree, and then volunteered at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science for 15 years. WT, well, first of all, it had about 2,000 people, I think, 2,000 students. Well, when we first came to town, there were some pipe fence along 4th Avenue, the north edge of 4th Avenue, so that when people drove their cattle into town to the train station, they wouldn't get on campus. That tells you what it started out like. There were friendly people here, and of course, a lot of them went to Canyon High School. I think probably half of our high school class came down here. I studied mathematics here, studied physics and chemistry. Of course, I studied English.
Went to high school here in Canyon. We got a degree here when it was West Texas State University. Went on to get masters and PhDs from University of Texas, and then taught he's a professor emeritus from Iowa State, taught mathematics for many, many years.
My wife is Carolyn Christian. One November day, Carolyn came in, and it turns out she was playing basketball that night. And I met Carolyn, but she didn't meet me. She doesn't remember it. Well, we met over in West Texas again, more seriously. And we did get married after some period of time. And we got married in the Hill Chapel here on campus. You go in the chapel, there's a little room over the side where the potential groom is going to be, but there's no exit door. They established the Cornette Library. I think it was dedicated in '74. Well, of course, library is the fundamental unit for the university, but my father's area of study was English literature. I just this year got a copy of his master's thesis. That thesis was Persecution of Puritans by the Stage. Tell the honest truth, it's 100 pages long, and I've read 55 pages, so I'm still working on it.
That seems to me very fitting that the library was named for his father and that Jim and Carolyn maintained an interest.
Because of Jim, there is that wonderful sculpture now, the Robert Frost sculpture.
Very interested in art, and so that's the way they wanted to, honor Jim's parents. We worked on a sculpture.
And I got an idea that I would like to put a sculpture out in front of the library. She mentioned maybe Robert Frost. Well, that rung a bell with me because Dad liked Robert Frost.
We just celebrated our 50th anniversary. Many family members came to the event. We had, I think, 3 generations here.
It was so much fun to see him marching in the homecoming parade last year with his daughter Betsy, and he holding a big sign for the Cornette Library.
Mom had developed an art gallery, and my father negotiated with the artists My mother negotiated with the people buying art. It was a good combination.
Miss Cornette became a good friend. We loved her art gallery. And we'd go down on Sunday afternoon to see my parents and let them play grandparents while we did things like going to the museum or Mrs. Cornette's gallery. That was one of our stops.
Most all of the art in this room came from Mrs. Cornette's gallery.
Okay, well, I got to show you something here. Found this tooth. I don't know whether you can see it. 1991, most insignificant fossil you could ever have. Well, the Triassic period lasted from 230 to 184 million years ago. That meant that this tooth was at least 184 million years. Trying to figure out what that meant really got me into paleontology. That's what did it.
It was that tooth that he had found. He was curious enough that he went back to school and studied at the University of Kansas and got a degree in paleontology.
After retiring, didn't retire, he went on and got another degree.
I went back to Kansas and I first entered there as a non-degree seeking student. I just wanted to take paleontology classes. That first semester I realized I would have a lot more coherent program if I just tried for a master's degree.
I think it's wonderful that he still goes to the Panhandle Plains Historical Museum to volunteer his time and his talent.
Visit the museum quite a bit after I was told about Phytosaur. As a matter of fact, now I'm officially a volunteer in the museum.
I oversee, and curate the paleontological collections, or rich collections that we have here at the museum, but I'm not a paleontologist. I'm not a paleontologist by training. We do not have a paleontologist on campus. So when he walked in and said that he had a master's in paleontology and wanted to volunteer, it was just fabulous because we could really use that expertise here.
He was giving a seesaw lecture and he was talking about this phytosaur tooth that he found. It was just a fantastic presentation. You could tell he was passionate.
So it really is, to me, very fascinating that he really started a new career after he retired from 30, 40 years of teaching mathematics at Iowa State.
I think last year was his 20th year to run the Boulder.
There is a rather well-known 10K race in Boulder, Colorado, and I've run it for 20 years. And I'm going to run it again. Run is quotation marks because I don't run like it used to, but I am going to participate.
That he's continuing to learn and is curious. He continues to travel.
First of all, I'm going to Kenya and Tanzania. That's a 21-day trip. And then I will be going to Wyoming to search for leaves, keep physically fit, mentally fit. It's just incredibly important.
It's always fun to talk to him and find out what he's been into. All of his accomplishments are unbelievable and amazing, but he still loves the Panhandle, and he still loves WT, and the Cornette Library, and the Panhandle Plains Historical Museum.
We are glad to have Jim into the society. It's going to raise the standard quite a bit.
Well, because he depicts all those core values that WT is about. To always be a learner, always be curious. I think he's an inspiration and a role model to everyone.
I think Jim sort of was born into a family, that was very influential in this area, and he is keenly aware of sort of the responsibilities that come with that. I think although he left this area 40 years ago, he hasn't stopped thinking about it for a second.
You've got to keep on, whether you want to or not, you've got to keep on learning things. Well, I'm very excited about the award. It was sort of a revelation to me to write down a history of my life. It's entitled, I Am Lucky. That really is the case.